The ancient and esoteric Order of the Jackalope is a secret society devoted to a simple idea: that which is least known is best to know. Each episode, one of our initiates finds some strange story or amazing fact to share with you. No topic is off limits, except for the obvious.
Greetings, initiates. There's no banter this week. We're just going to get right into it. Fruitcake Subculture Conspiracy Revisited, presented by Number 7. In the recent past, society took a turn, and a once beloved holiday tradition was transformed into a cruel joke almost overnight. So complete was this change that those who dare to defend the tradition are branded outcasts and pariahs, rejected and ridiculed by popular culture. I'm talking about fruitcake, of course. There are a few traditions more traditional than fruitcake. The ancient Egyptians revered their fruitcake, a snack as eternal as death itself, and buried it with their dead to ensure their souls would always have something to eat in the afterlife. There's almost no evidence that the living enjoyed fruitcake, but they must have, right? Roman fruitcake was more like a granola bar, a clump of dried fruits, nuts, and grains held together and sweetened with honey, and it was meant to be a snack for travelers on the go. It was especially popular with legionnaires, who would carry it with them into battle. In medieval times, fruitcake evolved into lighter, sweeter versions like the Italian pan forte and German stollen. In England, they had plum porridge, a mince and fruit dish that slowly evolved into plum pudding after ditching the mince, which was actually meat back then. What really turbocharged fruitcake, though, was the European colonization of the Americas and the availability of cheap sugar. It turns out dried fruit was great, but dried candied fruit was even better and even longer lasting. Sugar also made distilled spirits more popular, giving rise to variations like the Jamaican black cake, where the fruits are soaked in rum and wine as a preservative. All that booze and sugar led dour Puritan types to decry fruitcake as a decadent, sinful treat. They tried to outlaw it, but still allowed it to be served on important occasions, firmly cementing fruitcake as a dessert for the holidays. The expansion of the postal service in the 19th century turned fruitcake from a holiday treat into a holiday gift. Queen Victoria's wedding cake was a fruitcake, which triggered a mini fruitcake renaissance. The Victorians also introduced the concept of storing fruitcake in alcohol-soaked cheesecloth. By the 20th century, fruitcake had achieved its ultimate form, a sweet, dense cake enriched with candied fruits and nuts, encased in a coating of sugar syrup or alcohol, usually brandy, rum, or bourbon. A properly made fruitcake will last forever. The combination of low moisture and high salt combined with the preservative properties of alcohol and sugar crystals can keep bacteria at bay almost indefinitely. Due to its longevity, fruitcake is often seen as an ideal ration for soldiers and explorers. A fruitcake carried to Antarctica by Robert Falcon Scott was rediscovered in 2017 and pronounced almost edible by the Antarctic Heritage Trust. With a little TLC, it could be entirely edible. A family in Tecumseh, Michigan has been carefully maintaining the same fruitcake since 1878, and by all accounts, it seems to be fine. The Apollo astronauts took fruitcake to the moon, but they didn't actually eat it, and who can blame them? NASA used to coat cakey foodstuffs in gelatin so the free-floating crumbs wouldn't short out their electrical systems. It would have been an ingenious solution if it didn't also make the encased items unappetizing. Eventually, the space food experts in Houston were able to iron out the kinks. The astronauts in Skylab enjoyed fruitcake as a Christmas treat, and the Apollo-Soyuz mission shared slices of fruitcake, a true milestone in interplanetary diplomacy. So when did people start turning against fruitcake? Fruitcake has always had its detractors, those unnamed 17th century Puritans, for instance, but they were clearly in the minority. By the 1950s, fruitcake was as American as apple pie and just as beloved. an attitude captured in Truman Capote's short story, A Christmas Memory, a soulful reverie to making and gifting fruitcakes at the holidays. Those magical fruitcakes of Truman Capote's Depression-era childhood were starting to disappear, though. An increasingly urbanized population had limited access to dried and preserved fruits, and while industrialized food concerns tried to step up and fill the void, their dried fruits were as flavorless as they were garish. It's hardly surprising that many people stopped making fruitcake at home and made do with factory-made monstrosities pumped full of chemical stabilizers to compensate for the fact that they were alcohol-free. Fruitcake quickly became stereotyped as overly sauce, filled with technicolored glacé morsels, chunked up with acrid citrus brick-like. For decades, the popularity of fruitcake declined, and then Johnny Carson made a throwaway joke on the November 22nd, 1978 edition of The Tonight Show.
The worst gift is a fruitcake. There's only one fruitcake in the entire world, and people keep sending it to each other.
In these days of fractured media, it's hard to understand exactly how much of a tastemaker Carson was, but when he spoke, America listened. Fruitcake haters had previously remained silent, but now they spoke out in ever greater numbers. It wasn't long before the public's opinion of fruitcake had flipped and hating fruitcake became the norm.
To me, fruitcakes means doilies, fruit punch, saucers on knee, proper ladies, and Red Cross Christmas parties. It has little good going for it.
You know me, I'll eat anything, but if I had to hate anything, I'd hate fruitcake. Fruitcake's most famous detractor was New Yorker writer Calvin Trillin.
There's nothing dangerous about fruitcakes as long as people send them along without eating them, I said in the nicest sort of way. If people ever started eating them, I suppose there might be need for federal legislation. How about people who buy fruitcakes for themselves, he asked. Well, now that you mention it, I said, nobody in the history of the United States has ever bought a fruitcake for himself. People have bought turnips for themselves. People have bought any number of Brussels sprouts for themselves. But no one has ever bought a fruitcake for themselves. That does tell you a little something about fruitcakes. Are you saying that everybody secretly hates fruitcake, he asked. Well, it's just a theory.
For my money, it's hard to beat this limerick from John Birchie. The fruitcake I got was bizarre. It was shaped like a brick or a bar. I won't say it was old, but I scraped off the mold, and I found it stamped SPQR. It wasn't long before fruitcake was a joke, a perennial pop culture punching bag. They even started indoctrinating our kids with books like Junie B. Jones and the Yucky Blucky Fruitcake. In 2003, a food bank in Buffalo, New York announced a fruitcake amnesty program where they would accept any unopened fruitcakes from unwilling recipients, with the idea being that they would then be redistributed to needy families throughout the region. To drum up attention for the program, they sponsored an IFOCE-sanctioned eating contest where the Black Widow, Sonia Thomas, set a world record by consuming 4 pounds, 14 and a quarter ounces of fruitcake in 10 minutes. It was the start of a great run for Thomas, who became the first woman to win the Wing Bowl the following month and broke the record for most hot dogs eaten at the Nathan's Hot Dog Eating Contest on July 4th. Her fruitcake record remains unbroken to this day, largely because the response to the fruitcake amnesty campaign was underwhelming. Even needy families didn't want a free fruitcake. So what to do with an unwanted fruitcake? Well, if it's the first Saturday in January, you can always schlep down to Manitou Springs, Colorado for the Great Fruitcake Toss. There are prizes for distance, accuracy, and more. Be sure to bring your A game because everyone else will be playing for keeps. In 2007, a team of engineers from Boeing built a fruitcake cannon that hurled their fruitcake a quarter of a mile. Tossed fruitcakes are turned into animal feed, since animals are less picky than hungry Buffalonians. Anti-fruitcake feeling was so pervasive that those with differing views have been forced to quietly seek out others who, like them, still appreciated the fruitcake. A fruitcake subculture was formed, and thanks to the internet, began to quietly spread. It may surprise you how many people are in the Fruitcake Underground. Just tell a fruitcake joke to your friends and carefully watch their reactions. Odds are one or more of them will be laughing nervously, trying to blend in without making a scene, wondering if anyone will ever come to the rescue of the defamed fruitcake. We are slowly winning the battle, though. Right now, someone somewhere, maybe even someone you know, is enjoying a dense, moist piece of fruit and nut-laden, spirit-drenched cake behind closed doors, and probably feeling a little guilty about it. The moment is rapidly approaching where the movement will come out of hiding. Fruitcake is about to become the next great thing in the world of special occasion food items. That's right, fruitcake is on its way back in. So grab some fruitcake recipes and let's go. It's almost conspiratorial the way everything is falling into place. Have you noticed the abundance of dried fruits available in your local markets these days? Not the nuclear green candied fruit-like substances of yesteryear, but real dried fruits like apricots, blueberries, dates, and plums. There are even dried fruits you've never heard of a decade ago. Craisins, goju berries, acai. They are even putting them in the cereal to get you acclimated to them. There are excellent gourmet fruitcakes from Texas' Collins Street Bakery, Georgia's Claxon Bakery, and Kentucky's Gethsemane Farms. But people still aren't trying them. So the next step is to gain broad acceptance by changing the name. Let's face it, the term fruitcake has all kinds of negative associations. But what about Jack Daniel's bourbon cake or Myers rum cake? Yesterday, I saw the first of these commercially marketed fruitcakes in the holiday section of the gourmet grocery store in my town. What can you do to stop us? Nothing. It's too late to try. We've already come too far. So just embrace it. Give it a try. Who knows, you may actually like some of these cakes. The new cakes blend the best of the new with the best of the old. Gone are the crazy candied fruits, and in are the modern dry fruits. Don't hide it in your closet anymore. Dice it up into small squares and dip it into chocolate for a delicious treat. You can even try warming your fruitcake in the oven. The candied fruits will release some of their moisture and re-moisten the fruitcake, or so I've been told. With the outstanding shelf life built into a fruitcake, what do you have to lose? The only key source for this episode is my own Texas cooking article, Fruitcake Subculture Conspiracy, but I consulted a number of other sources as well, including Marc Abrahams' Military Experiments on Fruitcake, David Cashion's The Dreaded Feast, Harold McGee's On Food and Cooking, Glenn Warren's Seasons Eating podcast, and dozens of newspaper articles and websites. It's only tangentially fruitcake related, but you should check out Katie Vine's Just Desserts, about an embezzlement scandal in Texas' Collins Street Bakery. It's a fascinating story with some truly strange twists and turns. If you go over to our website, orderofthejackalope.com, that's Order of the Jackalope with hyphens between the words, you can find my basic fruitcake recipe and a few suggestions for changing it to your own taste. I'm currently seasoning a batch of fruitcakes, and if we're lucky come the holidays, we'll put out a bonus episode where we taste them. That's all for now, initiates. Until next time.
This episode was produced by Dorothy White for the Ancient and Esoteric Order of the Jackalope, and That's Not Canon Productions. A transcript, list of sources, links, and more can be found on our website, orderofthejackalope.com. That's orderofthejackalope.com with hyphens between the words. Our show is released under a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial Share-alike 4.0 International License. All rights reserved, all wrongs reversed. Do you have thoughts about this episode? Why not share them on our Discord server? There's a link in the show notes. Or reach out to us on social media. We can be found at Order Jackalope on most platforms. Or just send us an old-fashioned email at jackalope@orderofthejackalope.com. We want you to join our secret society. All you have to do is share your strange story or amazing fact with the world. Visit our website and click Join Us for more information. Until next time, quicquid minime sciat, optime scire.
A That's Not Canon Productions podcast.